always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Live from the Heartland, glad to have you on board right here in the shadow of Detroit in working class America. Kicking off another brand new year, leading into it here on the Steve Gruber Show, fighting for you from the foxhole freedom, which always makes me say, who do you want in your foxhole in 2026? It's going to be an important year to know who you're standing shoulder to shoulder with. Let's do the work now. A lot to get done here. Three big things this hour. Number one, the CDC has chopped the required childhood vaccine schedule in an unprecedented overhaul following the trust issues post-COVID. What do you think about that? Number two, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, after proclaiming his innocence loudly on the massive fraud among the Somalis in his state, has dropped out of the governor's race. Not what an innocent guy would do, I don't think. And number three, it's been a rough couple of days for socialists. First, Venezuela's narco-terrorist leader, Nicolas Maduro, removed from power by the United States military. And now, as I mentioned, Minnesota's scandal-plagued governor, Tim Walz, announcing he's not seeking re-election. The socialists are losing ground. The Democrats are, once again, proving to be on the wrong side of just about every issue, including these. Democrat Governor Tim Walz and his supporters were betting on the American people just looking the other way when it came to fraud. Billions of dollars swindled away by people who came to our country just to exploit it. Walz called in the investigation into the fraud a tool of white supremacy. Yeah, he did. He thought he could win over voters again by promising to continue with the very actions that enabled billions of dollars to be taken out of his state. Listen to this.
And right now, our neighbors are being demonized. Our neighbors are being terrorized. Our neighbors are being picked up off the streets. The antidote to that is positive actions to improve lives that go against what they're trying to do. So instead of demonizing our Somali community, we're going to do more to welcome more in and welcome people there. Instead of cutting programs, we're going to enhance them.
Yeah. Americans do not respond to being called racist by unhinged Democrats anymore. The name calling, we're over it. We want accountability. We want justice, regardless of where you came from or the color of your skin. But race and ethnicity are all that Walz has ever focused on. He's been banking on that Somali vote for much of his political career, as have so many Democrats in Minnesota. Back in 2022, he flat out told us so. Listen to this.
We're a state of immigrants that values that. We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future. This beautiful diversity we see out in Worthington when I'm there, you see 50 languages spoken in the school, and you see every storefront filled with different types of foods, different types of businesses that are happening. Minnesota needs to continue to do that. The office of governor can set the tone on that. We're going to continue to need to diversify. We're going to have to put policies in place that make sure we're attracting teachers of color so that students of color have someone that they understand, look like, think like, see like in front of them, as well as other students. We are doing it in Minnesota.
Yeah. How's that working out? Walz believed and campaigned on the fact he thought the future of Minnesota was dependent on immigrants, unvetted immigrants, who would then be allowed to steal billions and billions of taxpayer dollars. He made good on that promise, by the way. But Walz was wrong to believe that the American people would not rise up against this and demand better once they saw the damage. The pressure against Walz has been rising, and 23-year-old Nick Shirley and his videos exposing fraudulent daycare centers in Minnesota, well, they were clearly the tipping point. So now Walz is stepping down out of the way despite all his claims to be innocent because, sure, that's what innocent people do, run away and hide. Let's be clear. This isn't accountability. That better still be coming. He can't just hide from the law just by giving up the governorship. House Oversight Chair James Comer says Walz will appear before the committee next month. And I, probably like you, want to see justice delivered. Because as of right now, Walz is blaming everyone else except himself. What else would you expect? Here he is.
We've got conspiracy theorist right-wing YouTubers
breaking into our daycares, demanding access to our children. We've got the President of the United States demonizing our Somali neighbors and wrongfully confiscating funds that Minnesotans rely on. It's disgusting and it's dangerous.
And when he was asked about what should actually happen to people committing these crimes, Walz focuses instead on white men. Here he is.
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population.
Could it be any more predictable? I mean, honestly, it's the white dudes. It's those white guys. Do not look at the Somali daycares or autism centers or home health facilities. Not to mention wrong, because he knows just as well as I do that the rate of arrest for white men is lower than any other demographic. But Walz doesn't care about the facts, obviously. It's making more and more sense why Walz's own family voted against him in the presidential election. You remember that, of course. They knew what we all know now. He's a hypocritical grifter without not one shred of integrity. Not one shred of integrity does that man have. Democrats wanted this guy to be second in command of our entire nation. Can you even imagine the kind of waste, fraud, and abuse we'd be reporting on by now with him in Washington? Democrats, like usual, picked the wrong side of the issue and picked the wrong guy. And they're backing the wrong guy when it comes to Venezuela, too, by the way. Democrats need to stop telling Venezuelans how they should feel about Venezuela on the wrong side of an obvious issue. But that's what they're doing to their face, even in New York City, where leftists have been clashing with actual Venezuelans outside the New York City courthouse, where Maduro will be tried for his crimes, where he appeared yesterday. Here's an example.
We are Venezuela. You are not from my country. What part of Venezuela you are? 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 You are not from my country. You are not from my country. You are not from my country. You are not from my country.
No volverá. No volverá. We want justice, you say how.
Release Maduro right now.
Release Maduro right now. Prepagados.
No kings, right? No kings, except if Trump takes out a tin cap narco dictator, then it's bad. Yeah. I thought Trump was buddies with dictators. Remember, that's what they said. Oh, he's tight with these strong men. Yeah, okay. We'll have more on this after the break. Good morning and welcome to it. It is the Steve Gruber Show. It is really, truly remarkable in an absurd way. The same guys that were attending those No Kings protests over and over last year, attacking Donald Trump, are actually standing and defending an actual dictator who drove over and killed his own people with tanks and military vehicles. The same guy who killed thousands of his own citizens because they dared question his authority and his iron-fisted rule. The same guy who bankrupted his country to put billions of dollars into his pockets and those of his cronies. Yeah, these same people demanding the release of Nicolas Maduro. He installed himself as the treasonous king of Venezuela. I like what this Venezuelan exile has to say about the Democrats demanding Maduro's release. We could do this all day. Listen.
There are people who, at the protests, right, in New York, they were saying free Maduro, and they were talking about...
Send them to Cuba. let them live in Cuba or Venezuela for a day. And they won't say they won't say that again. Let them live there a month, and they will say that again. That's for sure. Yeah, people who say that doesn't know how to live in a communist regime or a dictatorship, you know.
Couldn't live there for one day. So true. It's easy to sit there with your almond milk latte, tapping out outrageous messages on your iPhone. It's different when you actually have to live there and you have no cell service or milk or money or hope. And the talking heads really can't stick to a point. Margaret Brennan showed exactly how exhausting it is to reason with Trump's critics while she questioned Marco Rubio. She wants to know why the U.S. military didn't nab all of Maduro's government. If the operation was really such a success and it was about narco-terrorism, why didn't we get them all? It's absurd. Listen.
Why didn't you arrest them if you are taking out the narco-terrorist regime?
You're confused? I don't know why that's confusing to you.
They're still in power.
It's very simple. You're not going to go in and wrap up. But you can't go. You're going to go in and suck up 5 people. They're already complaining about this one operation. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority. The number one person on the list was the guy who claimed to be the president of the country that he was not, and he was arrested along with his wife, who was also indicted. And that was a pretty sophisticated and frankly complicated operation.
It was.
It is not easy to land helicopters in the middle of the largest military base in the country. The guy lived on a military base. Land within 3 minutes, kick down his door, grab him, put him in handcuffs, read him his rights, put him in a helicopter, and leave the country without losing any American or any American assets. That's not an easy mission. And you're asking me, why didn't we do that in 5 other places at the same time? I mean, that's absurd.
Every time I see him, I'm more impressed. Every time. Marco Rubio has the grace of a saint. He has the patience of Job when he deals with these people. To even entertain this sort of question? So which is it? The left wants more bad guys gone or none? Because Senator Chris Van Hollen, among other Democrats, backing the dictator, the bad guys, again. Last year, he used taxpayer dollars to fly to San Salvador. Remember that? To have lunch with gangbanger Gilmar Abreu Garcia. Now, he's mad that Maduro is being brought to justice and facing prosecution in the United States. It's jaw-dropping. Here he is.
Base, this person continued, I think it looks weak. If you don't acknowledge when there is a win for our country, then you lose all credibility. The implication here that, in a way, removing Maduro is a win. What do you think of this criticism, apparently coming from a Democrat?
Well, John, I wish they would come out, on the record. We can have a healthy debate. I think the American people, whether they agree with you or disagree with you, they want to know where you stand. And so those Democrats really should come out and, on the record, let's have a debate. This is not a win for the American people. Running Venezuela and talking about putting American lives at risk to go into Colombia or Cuba or wherever it may be is not in our interests.
Not a win for the American people. Tell that to the families who lost loved ones right here in the United States because of Tren de Aragua, sent by Venezuela to expand their criminal operation through human trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, drug smuggling, and flat-out murder. I'll let Ambassador Mike Walz explain why it is in our interest to have Maduro gone, which is what Walz did with a masterclass in front of the United Nations. Here he is.
Secretary Rubio stated just yesterday, this is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation for our nation's adversaries and competitors and rivals of the United States. You can't turn Venezuela into the operating hub for Iran, for Hezbollah, for gangs, for Cuban intelligence agents, and other malign actors that control that country. You cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States, under the control of illegitimate leaders, and not benefiting the people of Venezuela, and stolen by a handful of oligarchs inside of Venezuela.
So spot on. Maduro didn't serve the Venezuelan people. He actively plotted against the American people alongside our enemies, and I'm glad he's gone. And the Democrats who aren't have exposed themselves to be America last once again. When you zoom out, the pattern could not be more clear. Democrats are almost never on the right side of an issue. They were wrong about Tim Walz, wrong about the fraud, wrong about the people who paid the price for it, and now they're very wrong about Venezuela, wrong about Maduro, and wrong about what justice actually looks like. Every time there's a choice between accountability and excuses, between victims and criminals, between truth and ideology, Democrats pick the wrong side. They defend the corrupt. They coddle the criminals. They smear the whistleblowers, and then they act shocked when the public revolts. Walz didn't lose support because of misinformation or racism. He lost because people saw the damage his policies caused and refused to ignore it any longer. The same blindness shows up on the world stage. Instead of standing with Venezuelans who suffered under this narco dictator, Democrats side with the dictator. Instead of prioritizing American lives harmed by the cartel violence and crime violence, they lecture the public and protect the very systems that enable it. I'm glad that Walz is gone and Maduro is gone. I say America first. I'll be right back. All right. Ivy walked down and handed me this. Teddy Roosevelt, more than a century ago, addressed this whole question of immigration and how people become Americans. And I want to read a quote here because it's important to understand. When the left is saying, oh, we're a nation of immigrants, you're right, but there are responsibilities that come with that. Here's the quote. In the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he shall be treated on the exact equality as everyone else. For it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed or birthplace or origin. But this is predicated on the person becoming in every facet an American and nothing but an American. There can be no divided allegiance here. Any man who says he is an American but something else isn't an American at all, like Somali American or whatever you might choose. We have room but for one flag, the American flag. We have room but for one language here, and that is the English language. And we have room for but one sole loyalty, and that is a loyalty to the American people. Hyphenated Americans are no Americans at all, said Teddy Roosevelt, 1907. It was true then. It's never been more true than it is today. Thought you should hear that. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity, and cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam that the FBI calls house stealing? House alarms, doorbells, cameras, deadbolts, they don't work against these thieves. They're not after your stuff. They're after the equity that you've built in your home. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using a one-page document they file at the county, then take out loans against it or even sell the house and the property behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't even realize it until collections and foreclosure notices end up in your mailbox. The best way to protect yourself, triple lock protection from Home Title Lock, my friends. Triple lock protection, 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid if the worst happens, restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. You can check in your home's title today and make sure you're not already a victim. Use the promo code Gruber at HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code Gruber. HomeTitleLock.com. Make sure your title is still in your name, and you will save some money today, and you'll sleep well with peace of mind. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. When we come back, the instability in Iran, could that be the next country to fall? We'll talk about it coming up. Well, the leaders in Tehran, Iran, facing this upheaval, these protests, thousands in the streets, they put out a solution in the last 24 hours. They're going to pay people $7 a month to help them afford more. $7. I kid you not. It's a headline here today. It's a little bit unbelievable. $7 here. Stop being angry. Here's $7. Todd Wood is the founder of CDM.press, author, Vindicta Publishing, and he has a brand new book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. That's why he's here today. Todd, good morning.
Steve, thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it.
Look, you can live oppressed. Here's $7. I mean, I look at that and I'm like, here's $7. Would you go home now? I mean, this is seriously what they're offering. They took $10 billion that they've been putting into something else, divided among the Iranian people, and here's $7. Look, we've seen these uprisings before, but I think that this regime is at its weakest point in 46 years. What are you seeing that's the same? What are you seeing that might be a bit different as you study this?
Well, you're correct. It is a little bit different, and it is an ongoing situation, but this one is different because the regime, as you mentioned before the show, is extremely weak. This is an oligarchy, Steve, that is essentially raping the people. You have them stealing all the natural resources. I mean, one fun fact, half the people in Iran don't have good source of fresh water because most of the water is diverted to the IRCG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' projects, economic industry or whatever, but that doesn't trickle down to the people. It's all taken by the oligarchy, and they haven't really cared about the people for decades. And this is why you continually see this, regurgitation of demonstration, because the people have no future. They really have nothing to lose by going out in the streets, even at the point of death, if they're arrested and killed, which many of them are. And that's where President Trump has come in recently. But another thing that's different here is there is a huge blossoming, booming, exploding Christian movement inside Iran. I went to one of the resistance movement meetings recently, and it was a bunch of young people talking about their future in Iran, and they were all Christian. And I found that fascinating, and it's not something that many people know about.
That is fascinating. You mentioned the political killings. 3,000 to 4,000 political prisoners a year are executed publicly in Iran, oftentimes, and oftentimes at the notorious prison there in Tehran. So this is what they do to enforce their power. You speak out, we'll hang you in public and make sure your friends don't speak out. But like you said, they're to the point of desperation, it doesn't matter anymore. They have no future. And let me just ask you this. I wasn't going to ask much about Venezuela, but the Venezuelan oil in part flowed to Iran. How big of a hit is that?
I think you're seeing a takedown, and I saw your talk on Venezuela, and I completely agree. You're seeing a takedown of the criminal networks around the world, from Ukraine to Venezuela, and Iran is next on the block. All of these people, or countries, or oligarchies, really, criminal organized crime networks have been working together. And yes, that's a blow to Iran, and it's a blow to China as well, but we can talk about all that. But I do think that Iran is extremely weak right now, and it's going to be very interesting to watch what President Trump does.
Are those helicopters I hear? Yeah, be very careful in Tehran. All kidding aside, though, what's it going to take? What is the tipping point? $7 is not going to buy them off. That's pretty clear. $7 ain't going to get it done. What's the tipping point? You are in regular contact with the folks here. You spend a lot of time in this region. What will it take for this to be different than other uprisings in that nation?
What the resistance will tell you is they don't want a war. They don't need American military force, and I don't recommend that. I'm not advocating that at all. Let me just put that out there. We don't need to be in Iran, especially with forces on the ground. What they do need is to stop the info op against them throughout the Western press, in the State Department, especially in Europe. There has been an information operation against the resistance, calling them, communists, calling them all different kinds of things, terrorists, and that is not the case. They just need to be treated with respect and support from the bully pulpit first. Once you get that done, then they will, it'll be very good for their movement, and they can do this themselves. So that's my number one recommendation.
The resistance, they appear here fairly regularly. The council, they spend, they're headquartered in Paris, right? The National Council of Iran, officially the National Council of Iran for Free Elections, they're sitting there. They could come in, but we're a long way from that point in the conversation. Again, how far can the protesters, can the uprising push the people behind the palace walls? What's it going to take?
It's going to take continued death in the streets, unfortunately, of a lot of young people, and that's essentially, revolutions are difficult, and this is going to be a bloody, ugly revolution. But the people of Iran have to do it, and I think they're ready to do it. I've talked with many of them. I've spent weeks at the location in Paris that you talked about. I was the first journalist in their camp in Albania. I know what these people want to do, and they will tell you, we can do it. We have a 10-point plan to install governance already. We have a shadow government ready to go. We want free elections. We want free markets. We want equality of religion. We want no nuclear weapons. On down the list, everything that's good for the West. We want a good relationship with the West. But they just need to tip the scales, and it's going to take a lot of pressure inside the country. The regime can be pushed, but it's going to take them to do it on the streets.
Khamenei is what, 86, 87 years old? The Ayatollah Supreme Ruler, whatever they call him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's on his deathbed or close. Then you look at the push here. I agree with you. They're very close to a tipping point here where it could be a different outcome. The people have had all they can take. When you say there's no good water for half the people, there's a lack of food, a lack of resource, lack of opportunity. Look, Iran was a pretty developed nation in 1978. I mean, you go back and look at pictures of Iran in the 1970s prior to the Islamic Revolution. It was a great place and could be a great place again. It's a beautiful country, right?
Mm-hmm. These people are they have a 5,000-year history of art, of science, of culture. The Persian people are a proud people, and I do believe that that can come back if they're allowed to develop on their own. And this is a youth movement, Steve. You have these young girls going in the street, 16, 18 years old, and in the past, many of them, a van pulls up with IRGC thugs. They come out, they arrest them, they take them to the prison, they kill them, they put their bodies in the paper and say, if you know these girls, come get them to their families. So the stuff that goes on in these prisons, there's been 130,000 of the resistance movement executed over the last couple decades. So that's the name of my book, Paying the Price. I mean, they have paid the price, and they want to rule in a democratic manner, and that is what we need to encourage to happen, not with military action, but with support from our bully pulpit and to stop the information operation against them.
Yeah, and Iran has been the biggest supporter of terrorism around the world for decades as well. Paying the Price, the untold story of the Iranian resistance, is Todd's book. Read it, understand what's going on there, and pray for these people because they might just break through this time. Todd, good conversation. Keep us up to date on what's happening. Thank you.
I will, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate it. There you have it, Todd Wood. When we come back, 2026 and your money. Your money. Are you ready for a correction in the markets? Will we see it hit 50,000? Gas prices better again today than they were yesterday or a month ago or a year ago. Some good signs out there, but still some rough water ahead. Nick Hopwood coming up on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, no lazy money. It's a new year. What are you doing with your investments? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel like getting to a more protected place, shielding yourself from downturns? Well, Nick Hopwood says you can consider all of those things. He's the founder and president of Peak Wealth Management. Click the QR code on your screen. When it pops up, you'll get a free Social Security analysis. Nick, welcome to the new year.
Good morning, Steve, and Happy New Year to you as well. But before we do any financial talk, I need my $7, please.
Yeah, $7. Can you imagine? You know what? Let's stop protesting on the streets here. $7. I mean, wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Go buy a half a loaf of bread or whatever you can get for that in Iran. All right, let's talk about Venezuela real quickly, because obviously it's disrupted the flow of illegal oil out of that country to places like China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. They're facing some real problems because Cuba especially. Cuba is also a country at a tipping point. But what has that meant for the markets when it comes to oil and investments?
Yeah, exactly. So oil, actually, the price of oil went down a little bit on the first trading day since Venezuela went down. But it's interesting to note that the oil stocks and oil refining stocks had a nice surge yesterday. So the market is looking at this as a bullish opportunity, for companies like Chevron and Exxon and the refiners like Halliburton and Schlumberger. So it could be an opportunity to unlock Venezuela from 1 million per day back up to 3 million per day, with the U.S. Oil companies taking advantage.
You mentioned Chevron. They're sitting on an absolute gold mine in Guyana, right on the Venezuelan border. And Venezuela has been rattling their sword, saying, we're going to come take over that oil. It's actually ours. Chevron found this giant deposit off the small South American country of Guyana. That's got to be good news for Chevron, knowing that their investment there and their plan for the future there is intact. They're talking about millions of barrels of oil within the next 10 years coming out of that country. So that should be a surge for that company.
Absolutely. And I think when we look back at 2025, it was the story of gold and silver and commodities.
Sure.
And as we look forward into 2026, the AI boom is still here, but how are we going to power the AI? And so my theme for 26 is energy. So we move on from AI and commodities to energy. So the spotlight here, the story with Venezuela really shines the spotlight on energy. Think about oil, natural gas, coal, and powering the AI data centers and the like. So that is the next opportunity that I'm thinking about right now.
I see that gas actually went up 0.2 cents yesterday for the first time in a while. So maybe it has some impact. But overall, you look at the price of gas, oil has remained at about $60, a little bit above, a little below for quite some time. That's all very good. But you look at the market as a whole, I think that we could hit 50,000. Can you imagine the Dow at 50,000? But we're within a couple of solid trading days from hitting that. But on the other side of that could be a correction. 10%, 15% wouldn't be surprising, would it?
It wouldn't, and it happens every year and a half or so. It happened in April of last year with the tariff tantrum. So my question for you, as you're thinking about 2026, what is your plan for the 2026 potential correction? Now, if you are thinking ahead, you can develop a plan and avoid the emotional decisions when the time comes, because the emotions make you want to sell. But look at this. Every time in the last 10 years when CNBC put the markets in turmoil headline on the screen, 1 year later, the market was higher 80 times out of 80 times. Happened 80 times. Every time it's higher, and on average is up 40%. And coincidentally, Steve, the low of April from last year to today, we're up 43%. So, just avoid the emotions, have a plan coming into the year, understanding that corrections are normal, and have a plan for it.
So what is the plan then? I mean, just overall, generally speaking, every client is different, obviously. But as you look at it, yeah, there's a correction coming. March, April, May, you never know. You can't predict it. We don't have a crystal ball, because if we did, we would have all bought silver a few weeks ago and bought it all. We didn't. So how do you plan for such a thing?
Yeah, if you're 46 like me and you're still working and you want to be opportunistic, you buy the dip. Okay, when it's down 10%, you buy. When it's down 15%, you buy more. If you're retired and you're relying on your portfolio, you think about it differently. You have to come into the year with some cash on hand. I tell my retirees, I ask my retirees, how much will you need this year from the portfolio? Let's just say it's $2,000 a month. So you need $24,000. We better have $24,000 set aside so we don't have to sell when the correction comes. So set that money aside, and then when the correction comes, remind yourself you have enough cash on hand. You don't need to make that emotional decision.
Don't need to panic. Do not panic. Speaking of panic, one last thing before I let you go. More than half of all Americans have no plan for when they die, no estate plan, which means it goes into probate, which means it gets chewed up by taxes and fees and court wrangling and nonsense. That doesn't have to happen if you put together an estate plan, right?
Yeah, there's 55% of Americans do not have an estate plan. It saddens me. So if you have little kids, you need to have a will, because the will dictate who's going to take care of your kids, who's going to be their guardian if you're gone. You need a power of attorney. If you get sick and you can't make medical decisions, or you can't sign for financial decisions, you need to have that power of attorney in place. Maybe you need a trust to guarantee to avoid probate. Not everyone needs a trust, but it's something to consider. So those are the three legs of the stool: the will, the power of attorney, and the trust. Work with someone like us to get it done. We're not lawyers, but we work with national law firms and can get it done very easily for you.
So if you want an estate plan and you've been thinking about it, this is your year, 2026. Don't put it off and then go, gosh, we should have done that when somebody passes away. Man, we should have done. Don't be there. Again, the QR code is on your screen for Peak Wealth Management. You can get some advice from Nick Hopwood, and hopefully you can invest and do well and have a future. That's the plan, Nick. Thank you for being here, as always.
Thank you. And will that $7 come via check or what?
It's in a check. Yeah, it's in the mail.
Thank you.
Nick Hopwood and his $7 advice. There you go. QR code right there on the screen if you want to get some advice from Nick Hopwood. Free evaluation of your Social Security. What it's going to look like, how you might benefit. When should you take it? 62, 65, 70? Nick will have answers for you. I'll take a break and be right back. All right, so just a couple of quick notes here. Number one, we've had some technical issues with the email in our server. Don't know why. I'm not a technical guy. Ivy's trying to sort it out. So if you've sent me an email sometime recently, I didn't respond, I apologize. We're fixing that. We believe all the emails are there. We just can't see them at the moment. But I encourage you to still send emails because we like to hear from you, get tips on big stories, all of it, and stay in touch with you that way as well. You go to stevegruber.com. You can have some fun reading some great articles there while you stop in. And we'll have that email situation figured out. The second thing is that Anthony keeps telling me the best place to watch this program oftentimes is YouTube. That crowd is growing. That chat is growing. Getter is fabulous. Another great place to watch. I talk to those guys all the time. In fact, I was this morning. Love those. I really appreciate all the comments and all the input and all the feedback from all of you. It's going to make 2026 an even better year. Here's a quick story that I was getting to and one that I want you to comment on, and that is the CDC has slashed the childhood vaccine schedule. It's an unprecedented overhaul, and it's all in reaction to all, well, the doubt that came back from COVID. I mean, who trusts vaccines after that mess, right? The truth of the matter is some childhood vaccines are good. The idea that you should have no vaccines ever, I think, is a step too far. That's my opinion. As somebody who's had vaccines, as a parent, I think that's a step too far. But the new guidelines take effect immediately as officials cite the need to rebuild public trust in the wake of the pandemic. That part I believe. We have to have trust in what we put into our bodies. I don't care if it's as simple as aspirin, which has been around since 1899. You have to trust the product, right? Who invented aspirin? Do you know? Who invented aspirin? This is your next trivia question when you want to win a bet with your buddy. Bayer is your answer. Bayer, 1899, aspirin, changed the world. And so did you by being here today because you're the most educated audience in information today. That's what we try to do for you every day. And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate Real America's Voice, MTN Networks, and all the things that we can do here. It's going to be a great year. We'll have more of the Steve Gruber Show after the break. I'll be right back. always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering the truth from the heartland of America in the shadow of Detroit. This is working class America. We fight for you every day here. Every day. And leading into this new year right here on the Steve Gruber Show, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom, the arsenal of democracy. That's right, every single day. Let's get to work now. We've got three big things to cover this hour. Number one, the CDC, as I said, chopped the vaccine requirements for the United States. We'll tell you about that. Number two, Senator Amy Klobuchar is the leading candidate to replace Governor Tim Walz in the race in Minnesota. If that happens, it would mean both Senate seats in that state would be up for grabs in November. That is a problem for Democrats. And number three, I have to continue with the fallout from the bold and successful removal of the dictator, Nicolas Maduro. He was a narco-terrorist dictator, and he wasn't just some street-level drug dealer. He was operating a drug empire that also trafficked millions of people. Not to mention the criminals, Tren de Aragua, and the other gangs that he worked with and sent to the United States to set up shop. I'm cheering his removal. So many other voices cheering his removal as Democrats and agitators jeer at this unprecedented success. Network TV news is just not serious. They're just not on so many topics. But the latest, of course, is Venezuela. But Marco Rubio knows how to rip them apart, fairly politely, but really effectively. Listen to the Secretary of State.
He's still in place. The defense minister, who has deep ties to Russia, $15 million price on his head, he is still in place. I'm confused. Are they still wanted by the United States? Why didn't you arrest them if you are taking out the narco-terrorist regime?
You're confused? I don't know why that's confusing to you.
They're still in
power. It's very simple. You're not going to go in and wrap up. But you can't go. You're going to go in and suck up 5 people. They're already complaining about this one operation. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority. The number one person on the list was the guy who claimed to be the president of the country that he was not. And he was arrested along with his wife, who was also indicted. And that was a pretty sophisticated and frankly complicated operation.
It was.
It is not easy to land helicopters in the middle of the largest military base in the country. The guy lived on a military base. Land within 3 minutes, kick down his door, grab him, put him in handcuffs, read him his rights, put him in a helicopter, and leave the country without losing any American or any American assets. That's not an easy mission. And you're asking me, why didn't we do that in 5 other places at the same time? I mean, that's absurd. I do think this is one of the most, daring, complicated, sophisticated missions this country has carried out in a very long time. Tremendous credit to the U.S. military personnel who did it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. It's absurd. Of course it is. The impact of the strike on Venezuela, a huge hit to several of our biggest enemies, including China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. Look, this is a big blowback for them. They had set up shop in Venezuela years ago. Listen, this has been going on for almost 27 years. In our Western Hemisphere, here they were right in our own backyard. We can't have it. Here's more.
Tell me how this news is being received in Iran. How's it being received in Russia? How's it being received in China?
All three, predictably, will deplore this kind of activity publicly. Privately, they will be impressed with the military capability here. I would argue none of those 3 militaries could have executed an operation like this. And again, we tend to just breeze by this. But the idea of finding, fixing, kidnapping, taking him out alive with his wife, no casualties on the side of the U.S., that's an extraordinary military operation. So I think while there will be a lot of public condemnation of the United States, predictably from those 3 nations, privately they'll be saying to themselves, that's a very capable military. That's not a bad thought to pop up in Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran these days.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Also in Cuba. Look, we demonstrated an ability that should have everyone cheering. You know, there are a few Democrats like John Fetterman who is saying, why are we not celebrating this? Why are the Democrats, the same Democrats, by the way, who for years have been screaming for Maduro to go, some that yelled at Donald Trump during his first term saying, why are you doing nothing with Maduro? And then they would say fanciful things like, well, you know, Donald Trump loves dictators. No, clearly he doesn't. But when Donald Trump takes out the dictator and loses not a single American life, they scream. Their hair is on fire. And the only reason, they don't care. If Donald Trump cured cancer in the Oval Office today, they find fault with it. They would. They would hate it only because it creates for them this unstable emotion. They hate Trump more than they like anything else. Let's be honest, they like the fact that Maduro's gone, but they hate Trump more. They like the fact that the border's closed, but they hate Trump more. They like the fact that the economy is improving, but they hate Trump more. It's all true. It's all true. But there are problems for the Democrats. Sizable problems as we head toward the midterms at this point. Look, the midterms are a long way from today. I believe the Republicans will win the midterms for a variety of reasons. Donald Trump does what he says. The border's closed, the economy's better, the dictators are being taken down. But there's a long way between here and there. A lot of things, there are going to be things that have happened that are going to happen that we don't even foresee. But in Minnesota, this is big that Tim Walz has dropped out of the race for governor. He says if he had stayed in, he would have won. No chance. No chance at all. That's why he left. He had face-to-face meetings with the senator, Amy Klobuchar, before he left. He did that Sunday. He dropped out yesterday. She is probably going to run for governor in Minnesota, but that creates a two-tiered problem for them because Tina Smith, one of the senators there, has already said she's not running for re-election in 26. So you have a vacant seat in Minnesota already, which I already thought was a possible competitive race. If Klobuchar leaves, it gives you 2 Senate races in Minnesota in a year when the citizens there have come to the stark reality that the Democrats in charge there have squandered billions of dollars to the Somali community through fraudulent daycares, autism centers, home health care companies, and more. The Democrats are in real trouble in Minnesota. First time in years. Deep, dark blue state. Now the Somali and their voters will vote for the Democrats, of course, because they want this all to continue. It won't continue. There are 2,000 federal agents right now in Minneapolis and St. Paul. If Klobuchar runs for governor, she has a good chance to win. I will tell you that. But it puts those 2, not 1, 2 Senate seats in play in the midterms of 2026. That's not something the Democrats can afford. I'll tell you that. I thought the Republicans were likely to pick up 2 seats, maybe 3 in the midterms in the Senate. If Minnesota gets wild, could be a big bonus for the red team. All right, I'll take a break and come back. And after the break, we're going to talk more about Venezuela and what it means in the aftermath after this. We try to give you the best information possible so that you have all the information you need to take on the day every day. My next guest is a retired CIA senior operations officer. I think this is interview 1,171 for him since Saturday. He works hard, folks, because he has the information. Rick De La Torre, the CEO and founder of Tower Strategies, joining me now. Rick, nice to see you today.
It's great to be back on, Steve.
Is it 1,173 or 74? I lose count. Anyhow, all kidding aside, I appreciate you being here. This is the most effective military strike, I believe, of my life. Not a single casualty. Maybe. I mean, they went into a military compound. They extracted a dictator. They were on the ground 3 minutes before they had him in handcuffs. It is a remarkable performance by the United States military, isn't it?
When you witness and watch these things play out with the professionals within our intelligence community and our military, and you see the hours, weeks, months, years they've dedicated to this trade, to this profession. It's like watching this finely orchestrated, ballet or movement that's just awe-inspiring. And I mean that. I really do think this will go down as one of the finest, if not the finest, operation in military history. You basically had every element of our armed forces in one way or another, Space Force, the U.S. Coast Guard, you name it, across the entire realm of U.S. military involved in this operation. And to do exactly what you just said within a few moments, travel thousands of miles into a foreign land, completely disable all their surface-to-air systems, their ability to defend themselves, get down on the ground, knock out all the bodyguards, all the Cuban intelligence bodyguards, go into this fortified room and bring him back, and then have him show up in New York in front of a court in a matter of hours. There's no other country in the world that can do that. It just doesn't happen.
It just isn't possible. Is it remarkable, though, that Democrats like Chuck Schumer and others who were openly calling during Trump's first administration, condemning him for not doing something about this dictator, about Maduro, screaming that Trump had to do something. So when Trump does something, then it's wrong. It's a violation of international law. It's an invasion. It's a war. And then over on CBS, I see Margaret Brennan trying to ask the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, well, why didn't you go get the other criminals that were there? I mean, are you serious? Sure. This is not a serious question. We went and got a dictator, a tin pot dictator, out of his bed and arrested him in 3 minutes' time, lost no Americans, and they want to try to figure out what they can say is wrong with the operation. It is just mind-bending, isn't it?
There's, my time at the agency, and even before that when I was in the military, there's nothing worse than being second-guessed, Monday morning quarterbacked by an individual who's never put on the uniform or never done your job and has no understanding of the realities involved in conducting these things. By
some guy sitting in his mom's basement with a keyboard, right?
Yeah, exactly. If I was in charge, I would have, and it just, it defies all reality. To your first point, though, obviously it's disgusting when we see politicians put their own political careers and their own political party ahead of U.S. interests and what's best for Americans. But, we're talking about a group of folks that just a few weeks ago were holding protests for no kings, no dictators. And then, now we're going actually after a real dictator. And they're like, wait a minute. No, not that dictator.
It shows their true colors. It really does. It comes from the No Kings. You're exactly right, Rick. They go from the No Kings protest to, wait a second, we like dictators. I mean, the best meme I saw on any social media platform was Donald Trump dressed up as a magician. And it says, for my next trick, I'm going to make the Democrats support a narco dictator. I mean, it was beautiful because that's what he did. It doesn't matter. Trump could cure cancer in the Oval Office today, and they would bitch about it. They would.
They'd protest that he put a whole bunch of doctors out of work.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because about 6 weeks ago, a video was put out by a group of Democrats, including Senator Mark Kelly and Senator Alyssa Slotkin, among others, urging the military, do not follow unlawful orders, do not do this, do not do that. That completely undermines the United States military. Apparently, they weren't paying attention to that seditious video because of what they just conducted again. with a flawless effect. But what about Mark Kelly? Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, says he's going to pursue censure against Mark Kelly, review his retirement, rank, and pay over that video. What do you make of that?
And rightfully so. And Mark, look, it's one thing, like we said, politicians who've never worn the uniform, who have no idea of what they're doing. That's one thing. But Mark Kelly, was a naval aviator, was a distinguished astronaut. I don't want to take anything away from his life of service to the United States, but he made some serious errors, some serious lack of judgment, which is something we expect from senior military officials. And what he did here was he undermined something that is sacrosanct in every military anywhere in the world, and that is the chain of command. And what he did was foolish. It was dangerous, and would have could have created some real serious issues with young military officers who, at a moment when you need them to execute, when you need them to conduct operations like the one we just saw this weekend, decide to pause or to think twice or to not carry out those lawful orders. Luckily, we have the USMCJ. There's a process for this, and the Department of War will have an opportunity to present its case, against Senator Kelly.
Sure. Going back a year, here's something I did not have on my bingo card. John Fetterman being the last sane voice in the Democrat Party. I didn't have that on my card, Rick. I'm just telling you. I mean, he's the one guy who says, wait a second, we should celebrate this while other Democrats are pulling their hair out. Anyhow, got to leave it there, my friend. Greatly appreciate it. Happy New Year. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about going forward, and you'll be back soon, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. John Fetterman, the last sane Democrat who says, what are you talking about? This is a great victory for America, which it is. We stopped China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. Got a dictator out of a country that's been running roughshod over its people for almost 27 years. It's a victory, folks. Take it. I'll be right back. Rick just mentioned Space Force, among other agencies working in concert with one another to pull off this remarkable strike in the heart of Caracas, in the middle of a military base, to extract a dictator in 3 minutes' time. 3 minutes. It's unbelievable. And by the way, if he had gotten behind that steel safe room door, they'd have gotten him out anyway. But that's incredible. And on the tail end of that, I want to say this. NASA is beginning an infrastructure overhaul under their new leader, as Donald Trump is also pushing very ambitious goals in space and space exploration. You don't hear much about this because of all the other things going on. There are so many things happening simultaneously right now in America, good things. You don't hear a lot about several of them, but you should. The recently confirmed NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman is demolishing several testing facilities in Alabama as the space agency looks to modernize its infrastructure under the leadership. The agency is going to demolish the dynamic test stand and the propulsion and structural test facility known as the T-Tower and the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. It begins Saturday. NASA is embarking on an exciting infrastructure modernization effort to prepare for the future of exploration. The first phase will make way for new facilities by retiring outdated ones. enabling investments in the capabilities needed to deliver on our world-changing mission of science and discovery. Trust the science. Isn't that what they tell you? Trust the science. I'm sure they're opposed to that as well. They must be. They must be. All right, 46% off on all Patriots Relief products this week. All week, 46% off. Use the promo code Gruber. You also get free shipping. Patriots Relief, the #1 CBD products in the world. Anxiety, pain, sleep, whatever you're looking to improve, Patriots Relief is there for you. PatriotsRelief.com. 46% off everything. America First CBD. Trouble sleeping? They've got you covered. Nagging pain? They've got you covered. Look, I used it for my dog when she was old. It worked great. Helped her for the last 2 years of her life. Trust me. PatriotsRelief.com. 46% off and free shipping all week. You can't beat that. I'll be right back. All right, diving right back into it now as we continue with the conversations around the capture of Nicolas Maduro. It was a remarkable effort. I've never seen anything like it. Not in my lifetime. I don't know if we've ever had a mission so successful in American military history, and yet people want to tear it down. Joining me now is Peter Brown, a retired Rear Admiral, the United States Coast Guard, Senior Fellow for the Western Hemisphere Security and Maritime Affairs at the America First Policy Institute, AFPI. Admiral, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me. And as you said, it was a tactically flawless mission. And just as importantly, it was executed in the service of strategic objectives of the United States as the president has articulated in his national security strategy.
Can you even believe the criticisms coming from members of the Democrat Party in the United States Senate, in the House, on media? To me, I'm like, you cannot be serious. These are the same people, Chuck Schumer and others, who were openly yelling at Donald Trump during his first term to do something about Maduro, to get rid of dictators. They have no King's protest because apparently they hate dictators, but when Donald Trump takes out an actual dictator who murdered his own people, who ran the biggest criminal operation in the Western Hemisphere, they scream as if something wrong has happened. This is enforcing United States law. By the way, when Noriega was brought into custody and held in for justice, the United States Supreme Court said perfectly legal. What is wrong with these people, Admiral?
Yeah, it's the Pravda parade. The same, and you pointed out just a couple minutes ago that John Fetterman is the only independent and sane Democrat remaining in Washington, D.C. The rest simply line up behind Schumer, Pelosi, Jeffries, and the most progressive left-leaning wing of the party. And in doing so, their talking points line up precisely with Moscow, Beijing, Havana, and it's just crazy the way they're operating right now. This is a great day for the United States, a great day for Venezuela, and a great day for the hemisphere, and a strong signal to all of those naysayers, both foreign and domestic, who are against what the president and his administration are not just trying to accomplish, but actually accomplishing.
Now, from where I sit here in the Midwest, stopping the drug cartels, very important. Stopping the gangs like Tren de Aragua, very important. But far larger to that than that to me, Admiral, is simply this. We stopped the expressway from Beijing, from Moscow, from Havana, from Tehran into Venezuela. They were so desperate in Venezuela, they were giving their oil away to China. And you hear people think, well, we're just there to steal oil. We're there to get the infrastructure back in place, which has been destroyed under Maduro. We're there to stop China from setting up shop, Russia setting up shop. That is more important, I believe, than the drug running. That's important as well, but on balance, stopping the incursion of our enemies to set up shop, to build military drones and aircraft and everything else in South America, that's far more important. What say you?
And that is the essence of the Donroe Doctrine. So in addition to protecting the American people, our homeland, our way of life, really the first priorities of the national security strategy of his first administration, under which I worked with him as his Homeland Security advisor, but also under this new national security strategy. But the follow-on to that is to keep those extra-hemispheric actors and malign influences, both state and non-state, completely out of our hemisphere. As was said over the weekend, it might have been Secretary Rubio, it might have been the president himself. We don't want to be in the best house in a bad neighborhood. We want to be a good neighbor in a good neighborhood. And like a lot of things, if we want something good, we have to be willing to deal with and eliminate the bad.
That's right.
And this is one of the biggest concrete steps that we've taken so far to do that, and more is coming.
I know you've been listening to the program this morning. I appreciate that. I want to ask you about this as well. Senator Mark Kelly, potentially Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, now pursuing censure against Mark Kelly, maybe more, to review his retirement rank and his pay over those videos that were released about 6 weeks ago from Democrats saying, do not follow unlawful orders, do not follow, basically trying to subvert the authority of the commander-in-chief. What do you think should happen here?
Well, like Senator Kelly, I'm a retired military officer who remains subject to the UCMJ. And the real problem that I have with what he did, and he also had colleagues not subject to the UCMJ who made the same inflammatory and damaging, divisive remarks, is that they left unsaid but implied that individuals in the military get to decide for themselves what's an unlawful order, or maybe to take counsel from that same group of naysayers that you talked about at the top of the show, to decide that something is unlawful. And actually, in my recollection, the last major illegal or unlawful order given by the military was by Secretary Austin when he mandated the use of an experimental vaccine on military members and then discharged those who wouldn't take it for religious or medical reasons. That has been found to be an unlawful order, and the people who stood up to it were punished and are just now, thanks to this administration, Secretary Hegseth, Senator Rick Scott from my home state of Florida, and others, just now undoing the damage that illegal order did to the cohesiveness and readiness of our military.
Admiral, I only have about 2 minutes left here, but there was something you mentioned in the break, and I want to get to this. Talking about Space Force and our technology, there's a major installation in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico obviously is a place that sits between mainland United States and South America. It could be a place where we could find common ground with those friends of ours in South America. But you said there's a telescope there. As part of our research, as Donald Trump rolls out an aggressive, ambitious space exploration and science agenda. Tell me about that and why it's so important to you.
So the Arecibo Space Telescope, or radio telescope, sits in the mountains of Puerto Rico. It was heavily damaged, nearly destroyed by Hurricane Maria in 2017 and has not yet been rebuilt. It has, like a lot of things in Puerto Rico, the capability of contributing to the U.S. Projecting diplomatic, economic, and military power into the Caribbean. Current governor of Puerto Rico, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, is hugely supportive of this administration. She welcomed the rebasing of military forces in Puerto Rico to participate in this operation. And anything that we can do to rebuild the capability of Puerto Rico to be, as it used to be, the crossroads of the Caribbean and a hub of American influence, that would serve America and Puerto Rico well. About 3 million U.S. citizens down there, among the most patriotic and most likely to serve in the military of all Americans. Getting Puerto Rico literally back on the map for the United States would go a long way toward moving our Western Hemisphere objectives forward.
Admiral, really appreciate your insights on a variety of topics. You come back anytime. We need to educate the people, and it starts here every single day. Thank you for being here, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Steve, and Happy New Year to you.
There you have it. Doing our best to make sure you are the best educated, most well-rounded citizens. It takes a well-educated electorate to run this country. Thank you for being part of it. We'll take a break and be right back. In the first hour, we talked in detail about the uprisings that have been going on for days now in Iran. Are we at a tipping point? Are we at a point where we could actually see something change in that country and Iran return, well, to the list of civilized nations, maybe? Joining me is Alireza Jafarzadeh. He is the Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, and the author of The Iran Threat. Alireza, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Happy New Year. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Glad to have you here. Look, we're sitting here watching from a distance, but you are intimately involved. We've talked about the political executions in Iran every year, from those that would raise a voice and say, I don't like what's happening. They're just taken to the prison there in Tehran and executed oftentimes. But today, we're seeing a people that look like they've had enough, that they're not going to take any more, that they're willing to sacrifice even their lives to turn Iran into a civilized nation again. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. This is the second week of uprisings that started with the small businesses in Tehran who protested the loss of the value of the Iranian currency, and soon expanded to other parts of the country. The poor, the deprived, smaller towns, they joined. Then the university students joined. So you have all three sectors of the society. And the slogans is no longer about the economy or anything like that. It's about death to the dictator, death to Khamenei, death to the oppressor, be the Shah or the supreme leader. It's very clear that the Iranian nation is looking forward for democracy, for political pluralism, for a future that is sharply in contrast with what they have now and what they had under the Shah's dictatorship. This is the era of democracy and political freedoms. That's what the people of Iran want. And
the government there, I've got to bring this up because I find this shocking. First of all, half of the people in Iran do not have safe, fresh drinking water. I find that remarkable considering where that country was a few decades ago. Secondly, in an effort to stop the uprisings, the government has offered $7 per month to people in Iran. $7. What do you do with $7? Here, tell you what, don't hate our government. Here's $7, go home. That's an insult, is it not?
This is absolute an insult. And remember, we sit on the second largest oil and gas reserves combined in the world. And yet the mullahs had made the people of Iran, 80% of them, are below the poverty line. They're done. They're entirely fed up. Nothing is going to satisfy the population except the overthrow of the Iranian regime. And you've seen in this second week of the protests, people are getting increasingly confrontational with the Revolutionary Guards, who are, their mission is to suppress people. They're trying to disarm the Revolutionary Guards, push them back, confront them. And the chance of death to Khamenei, death to dictator is all over the country. This is the era that I think it was expected, and that's why the regime in 2025 did a record number of execution of prisoners, including political prisoners and women. 2,200 were executed in 2025. This is higher than any other year since 1989 that Khamenei became supreme leader. The whole goal was to prevent the uprising, and guess what? The uprising is already here. That's why the focus of the regime is now on the organized force, the organized resistance that was responsible for exposing their nuclear sites, their missile program. But they're the biggest target of the Iranian regime. They're also acting as engine for change, the MEK inside Iran, and they have these resistance units. So I think the more the Ayatollahs try, the less productive they are.
I agree. Look, we're praying for Iran. You go back to the 1970s, Iran was a nation that was advanced. They had great technology. They had democracy to a point. I mean, the Shah was not the greatest solution, but it was better than what you ended up with by far. But we would like to see Iran become a democratic nation and join the ranks of civilized nations around the world, stop promoting and supporting and financing terrorism, all of these things, and let Iran rise again. It's a beautiful country, Alireza, a beautiful country. And we need to bring it back into the fold, don't we?
Absolutely, Steve. You know, Iran has a a history and culture of thousands of years. All the major scientists and vanguards in any field came from Iran. And then in the past 100 years, you saw dictatorship ruling the country. Before it was the Shah that, even though in compared to the mullahs, the Shah may look like a chorus boy, but remember he had Savak secret police that put intellectuals in jail. He declared a single party rule. He was so corrupt. That's why there was a revolution in Iran. And then too bad the mullahs stole that revolution. So for a nation of 90 million with that history and culture, the prospect for change is very clear for them. They have experienced the monarchical dictatorship, they have experienced the theocracy, and what they are thriving for is democracy and political pluralism. That's why when Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, our leader, introduced a 10-point platform for the future of Iran, saying that the legitimacy comes only from ballot box, not from theocracy, not from inheritance, and called for separation of religion and state, even though 98% of the population in Iran are Muslims. She said, that has to be separate. Equal rights for men and women, free market economy, and a non-nuclear Iran. That's so important. And imagine, Steve, when Iran is free with that kind of characteristics, what an impact it would have, not just for the people of Iran, but for the whole region and globally.
And the world, right, and the world. Alarisa, we're going to keep you on speed dial because things are changing fast across the nation right now. We'll see where this leads, but our prayers are with you and the National Council of Resistance of Iran and the Iranian people. We hope after 46 years there can be a change in 2026. Alarisa, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. I'm always accessible to you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, change. Maybe that's the big word for 2026 in Venezuela, in Iran, in Cuba. We'll have sports after the break with Brock. I'll be right back. All right. Let's check in on sports now with our good friend Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. It was Black Monday in the National Football League, the day where head coaches get fired right after the regular season ends, and 3 of them were let go yesterday. Arizona fired third-year head coach Jonathan Gannon after a 3-14 season. Cleveland fired sixth-year head coach Kevin Stefanski after a 5-12 campaign, and Las Vegas fired Pete Carroll after just 1 season with the Raiders. 6 head coaching openings currently in the NFL. 8 games in the NBA last night. Winners included Boston, Detroit, Denver, and Portland. In the NHL, there were 5 games. Winners were Washington, Detroit, Utah, Seattle, and Los Angeles. In men's college basketball, a light night, but 10th-ranked Nebraska and 12th-ranked Michigan State both won. In women's college basketball, a light night as well. 9th-ranked Michigan and 14th-ranked Iowa both won. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
I'm shocked. Brock, Michigan won?
In women's basketball, yeah, they're a top 10 team.
Well, I thought I was just picking up. I thought it was the men's team. When do they play again?
They play tonight, actually.
And who do we have on this? Who do we have on the hit list?
Oh, geez, now.
Now I'm making it tough on him. See?
Yeah, you are.
Yar.
You are. Give me a minute. Well, less than a minute here. 30 seconds. Get that. Come on. Come on, computer, work for me.
Brock's as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now, going, how do I get this? Yeah.
They're at Penn State. Yeah, that's right. They're at Penn State, 7 o'clock tonight.
Against the Lions of Penn State. All right. Fair enough. And your prediction? I got mine.
Oh, Michigan will win easily. They should, although they've had trouble at Penn State in previous years. They've been upset there, so they got to at least show up and play.
Yeah. Not a previous year this year, though, is it? All right. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Brock, as always. All right, still to come. Senator Alyssa Slotkin, among those criticizing the incredible strike on Maduro in Venezuela, taking out the dictator and bringing him to a New York federal courtroom. Yeah, on the wrong side of history, I think. We'll talk about it coming up in the next hour right here on The Steve Gruber Show. I'll be back. something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent. Come on, man. We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome back to it as we kick off another brand new hour here from the Foxhole of Freedom, defending you in this nation every single day. It's what we're entrusted to do, and I'm glad you're here. Who do you want in your foxhole? Great question every single day. Who do you want in your foxhole in 2026? Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the Caribbean nation of Dominica, tiny little nation, now agreeing to take refugees from the United States legal system, the asylum seekers, as they sit and wait. Number two, is Michigan just as corrupt as Minnesota? That's a question I've been asking. Now Eric Nesbitt is asking as well. He's running for governor. He's in charge of the Michigan Republicans in the Senate. He's the leader there. And number three, I'm going to start here because it's so important that we call out those that are just completely dishonest, disingenuous, hypocrites, frankly, when it comes to taking out Nicolas Maduro, the narco-terrorist dictator of Venezuela, and not taking him out lethally, but taking him out of his bed, putting him in handcuffs, putting him on the USS Iwo Jima, and then within a few hours have him in a courtroom, a federal courtroom where he was indicted 5 years ago, almost 6, to face charges from the United States. From Michigan's Democrats, we get this. Rashida Tlaib. Trump carrying out an illegal and unprovoked bombing of Venezuela is kidnapping, she said. She said, we're warning it reflected the behavior of a rogue state. Really? It's interesting considering that Democrats for years have called for Maduro's ouster. But when Donald Trump does it, suddenly it's the wrong thing to do. That should tell you everything you need to know. When Donald Trump does what everybody agrees with, because nobody considered him to be a legitimate leader, he was not the president of Venezuela. He lost the last election in a landslide by all metrics. By all observers, he lost the election, and yet he installed himself as the dictator and said that he won. He did not. He's facing criminal indictment in the United States for years. It actually dates back to 2011. Then there was an interceding document in 2020 that updated it for running a drug trafficking operation, using guns and weapons. Look, he was destabilizing South America, inviting in the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the Cubans to set up shop, which they did. He was exporting drugs, exporting millions of people in human trafficking operations, exporting Tren de Aragua and other violent gangs to the United States and elsewhere in the hemisphere. It's about damn time it stopped. John Fetterman, the only sane Democrat apparently left in the wild, praising what Donald Trump did. Actually, W. Wasserman Schultz, believe it or not, also said what happened was the right thing. In a jaw-dropping revelation, I'm going to find it here. We'll start with bite 12. John Fetterman, the sane Democrat in the wild. I want you to hear what he had to say. Listen to this. Bite 12.
I don't know why we can't just acknowledge that it's been a good thing what's happened. I mean, I've seen the speeches from whether it's Leader Schumer or kinds of past tweets from President Biden. You know, we all wanted this man gone, and now he is gone. I think we should really appreciate exactly what happened here. Now, remember, we all Democrats years ago wanted to eliminate him, and why have a bounty of $25 million if we didn't want him gone? Why would you do these things if you weren't willing to actually do something other than harsh language? Let's remember, 8 million Venezuelans were displaced and mass chaos, and now they were shipping drugs to our nation as well, too. So for me, it's like, why, as a Democrat, we can't just acknowledge that it was successful?
Yeah. Why can't you? Because hating Trump is more important than anything else. Success on any issue, success by any metric, must be attacked, must be denounced, must be ridiculed, apparently. Here's one that's really mind-blowing. On The View, Ana Navarro, far-left commentator on well, they all are. Far-left commentator on The View. Says what happened is great. Says it to Whoopi Goldberg. Talk about a jaw-dropping moment. Listen to this.
The people in South Florida, the Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years, when we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability. It brought me to tears. It brought me great joy. And, you know, I live in South Florida.
Wow,
Are you
that's
okay
enough
with
of
the
her.
way that it was done?
Brought
But
her great joy. It doesn't matter how it was done. It was done in the most effective, bloodless way possible. Not a single American lost. I haven't heard. Maybe I've missed it. Were there casualties in Venezuela? Because I have heard of no reporting on that. None. I scour the internet every day looking for great stories for you. I have found no information regarding any casualties in Venezuela. And here's something else that the Democrats that are criticizing Donald Trump and defending the king, Maduro, remember these are the no kings people, defending the dictator. The United States has had an extradition treaty with Venezuela for more than 100 years. By the way, if you want to see a great article on this, go to MichiganNewsSource.com. My news company. Great article about the reactions from Michigan Democrats, including people like Governor Whitmer. She's been quiet, but Debbie Dingell said the president cannot unilaterally depose a foreign leader. The American people do not want another regime change war. Debbie, there is no war. None. There's no war here. The senators, Alyssa Slotkin said, President Trump's decision to bomb targets in Venezuela, depose Nicolas Maduro, and run Venezuela continues the signature trend of his presidency. Relentless focus on foreign entanglements and looking tough abroad so as to distract from what's happening to Americans' pocketbooks. Weak, Alyssa. You're on the wrong side of this, which dates back to your video 6 weeks ago saying to the United States military, you decide what a lawful order is. You decide. No. Gary Peters wrote this, the United States does not need to drag itself into another forever war that puts American service members in harm's way and has no end in sight. What war, Gary? A war with no casualties? A war with no lost American equipment? These people are on the wrong side of the conversation. Absolutely on the wrong side of the conversation. It was the most impressive military strike of my lifetime, maybe ever. It demonstrated that America could go in, achieve an enormous objective, and not get anybody killed. No other country in the world could have pulled this off. None. Be proud to be an American today. We took out a dictator that in part has ruled roughshod over millions of people for 27 years. It's a good thing. It is a good thing. I'll take a break and be right back. All right, back to it now as we continue to make you the most well-educated audience in all of media. Ryan Jonas is the National Press Secretary of the American Federation of Children. He joins me now to discuss from promise to reality. School choice was a big winner in 2025. Will we keep the momentum in 2026? Brian, welcome to the program.
Yeah, Steve, good to be with you. How are you?
I'm good. Look, school choice is incredibly important. It is. It allows kids in otherwise failing schools to have an option. And it's strange to me that there are politicians out there that would stand against this. Of course, they get a lot of money from the teachers' unions and others. And I think that their intentions are not pure. Am I wrong?
No, you've hit the nail on the head, my friend. And when you're talking about an apparatus that runs around to the tune of about $3 billion with a B a year, that's what the teachers unions have in their coffers to be able to do what they will with it. And rarely, if ever, read as never, does that feel like it goes towards increasing educational outcomes, improving educational outcomes, prioritizing students, prioritizing families' needs. It's really just about adults and quite frankly, far too many buildings. And so we've continued to see this shift, though, where more and more states are adopting more pro-family school choice policies. 30 states across America now have some sort of school choice program. We're nearing 20 with universal eligibility. We've got this incredible opportunity with the federal scholarship tax credit. That was part of the reconciliation package. And so we're really excited for what's happened over the last few years. Last year specifically, I mean, 2025 was a huge win, but then we roll into 2026 with great opportunity for more states to embrace this. But I think you're right. And I think you've pulled at the thread a little bit, and more families, more communities are starting to see this. I mean, when the teachers unions are plastering posters for Venezuela rallies, that has nothing to do
that's
with
a problem.
educating our kids or making sure they can read or write.
Yeah, that would be a problem. Are these the same folks that were screaming "No kings" here repeatedly in 2025, and yet here they are seeing a dictator taken out? And we like the king now, the guy who murdered his own people, shipped millions of people illegally across borders along with drugs and everything else, and invited China and Russia into his nation? That guy?
Yeah, the mask is off, and it shows that just this is clearly a political operation and nothing to do with educating kids across America. So again, more and more people can see this. Look, we saw this during the pandemic. Families got a front row view to really just how politically motivated the teachers unions were. When they stood in the schoolhouse door saying we couldn't get our kids back to school safely, when everyone knew that we could. I mean, common sense showed you that these students could get back to school, yet they continue to block it. It shows just what they are. They are political apparatus. They're well-funded and they're well-organized, but I think more and more people are seeing it. And so what you can hope is that teachers across America, where they have the opportunity to say, you know, maybe this isn't something I want to be a part of. Maybe I can, if I've got the ability to opt out of my local union, maybe I can do so. And
here's another part of it, Brian. Here's the other part of it. Charter schools. The unions stand, shoulder to shoulder fighting against charter schools. Look, in Detroit, Michigan, I'm in the shadow of Detroit right here where I sit. They don't have great public schools, all right? They've got their challenges like any big city school district, all right? But charter schools in the city of Detroit have outperformed routinely the public schools, right? They have. And yet the teachers' unions who claim to care about education block them every step of the way. And that's just not right, is it?
That's right. And why are those charters performing so well? Because they've got the autonomy and the freedom and the flexibility to do what's best for their school and their students, right? That's the beauty in the way in which school choice works. Like, get the education back to the kids as close as possible. So I've been so excited for Secretary McMahon and President Trump for this approach of sending education back to the states. The charter model is a great example of how it can work, where a school can run itself, right? Where you've got a local board that is actually at that school. Parents are involved. Teachers are involved, right? Students want to learn. Like, that's the key to success here. And so it is incredible. But again, we've seen it time and time again, and it should come as no surprise. I mean, look, the unions want all the control. And when they say, look, we're okay with school choice, if you can afford it or you can send your kids there, They really, man, they only want kids to go to one make and model. They only want kids to go to traditional public schools. And look, for millions of kids across our country, that's working incredibly well. But it doesn't mean it should be the only option. We've got to free things up more. I'm telling you, Steve, this federal scholarship tax credit can be an absolute game changer in the way in which governors can opt into the program. They can free scholarship dollars up that are donor funded in their states, right? Tax incentive for the donors to get a $1,700 tax credit, create scholarships in the states, and they can be used for a lot of different things. Private school tuition, yes, but also tutoring services. So in those areas like Detroit, where kids are falling further and further behind, despite spending more and more, you could then bring donor-funded scholarships in to help kids get tutoring services while at the same time helping kids afford a private school that might best meet their needs. It really is a game changer.
It is a game changer. And maybe we can return to teaching kids about reading, writing, and arithmetic. I've been looking at some things here, and I'll just get you to quickly weigh in on this. Several states, about 10 now, they make each county a school district instead of each little school district dividing up the county. As a result, they save a tremendous amount of money. They have one superintendent. They have one food contract. They have one maintenance contract, whatever. And so more money goes into the students, not into the pockets of God only knows who, right? Because you have 15 different contracts for everything, right? I mean, can we be smarter about this? Furthermore, New Mexico, they build one school in that state, my understanding. Every district that needs a new school, it's the same school. They duplicate it. And by doing so, they're not building some architect's resume. They're building a school that effectively becomes better every time they build a new one because they iron out a few of the wrinkles. I mean, there are ways to save money, and that money could also go back into educating kids, couldn't it?
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of threads to pull there. I think the big picture is when you're talking about education reform, you need new ideas, and you can't continue to do the same thing over and over when the results aren't bearing out. And so the idea of thinking of new ways to ensure that student-centered outcomes are the focus of this. Who's the end user in all this, Steve?
The
student,
kid.
Right?
That's
the
right.
Kid. Everything should be focused into them, yet all we've seen across America is admin costs skyrocket.
Exactly.
Costs per student stay pretty stagnant, so where's all the money going?
Well, that's the question, Brian. I got to leave it there. But as the son of a fifth-grade school teacher, I'm going to tell you there's some elementary things we can do here that will save us a pile of money. Brian, thank you for being here.
Anytime.
All right. Let's make 2026 the year of the student, not the teachers union. How about that, my friends? How about that? I'll be right back. All right, is Michigan the next Minnesota? That's my question to you. How much fraud is there in these state programs for things like daycare, autism centers, home health care, food programs, whatever it might be? Whatever it might be. Eric Nesbitt's asking that question. He wants the Michigan LEAP program to be investigated and looked at, which is the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential, and its Child Development and Care program. He said fraud allegations in Minnesota should wake us up and point out to us that maybe we've got some things we need to be concerned with here. I agree. Look, if it's happening in Minnesota at the scale that it's happening everywhere. Maybe not at that scale, but maybe at that scale, maybe worse. And we won't know unless we ask the questions. Open the books. Let's let some third-party auditors come in and review the books. I mean, the Internal Revenue Service reviews my books effectively every year when I turn in my tax return, right? What would be wrong with protecting the taxpayers? What would be wrong with that? The answer is nothing. It'd be a damn good idea. Come in, look at the books, see where the money's going, see who's getting paid. And I keep going back to this facility in Minneapolis. The feds went in and put cameras all the way around it, right? Because they're claiming to feed 4,000 to 6,000 meals a day to kids. 4,000 to 6,000, it's just a small restaurant. The cameras revealed no more than 40 people went there on any given day. 40. They're now in court. They're now on trial for fraud. They got $12.5 million last year, did that facility, for serving 4,000 to 6,000 meals a day, which they did not. Let's make 2026 the year that we look for fraud, waste, and abuse. We don't need Doge. We need honest people to step up and do the right thing to protect you and I. Look, that money can also go back to kids in the classroom or to other people that need it, veterans, for example. We can do better, my friends, and we will in 2026. You can bet it. I'll be right back. Utility rates, man. And these data centers, I'm going to get into that in the near future as well. These data centers will take tremendous amounts of energy. One of them proposed in Michigan would take as much energy as 1 million homes. You're not going to power that with windmills and solar panels, I can assure you of that, but we could power it with Michigan natural gas. There are other options. My next guest is State Representative Steve Frisbee from Michigan's 44th State House District. Steve, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
Always good to have you. Happy New Year. Again, tell the folks where the 44th is.
44th is in Battle Creek all the way to Albion in the northern part of Calhoun County.
Albion. Best morel mushroom hunting in the state of Michigan. But that's my little secret, and don't tell anybody. All right, look.
I'll join you if you let me.
Well, there you go. The House just passed the Frisbee legislation to protect energy choice and block local gas bans. Do explain, please.
House Bill 4486 is a ban on bans. So what we've said is we're not going to let local government, county, townships, villages ban natural gas or LP gas being used, infrastructure is being built or removed. We're going to let my goal was to let people have choice in their energy. It's very efficient, and we think that needs to remain on the table. And with the energy laws of 2023, PA 233 and 235, by 2040, natural gas, everything has to become renewable energy in Michigan. So
that's foolish. That's always been a foolish pursuit. You know that, and so do I. That's why we're restarting a nuclear power plant in West Michigan. It's why we are looking at ways to create more opportunities for natural gas. I think where this comes from, and correct me if I'm wrong, but places like California said, if you're building a new house, you can't have a natural gas stove. Really? We have natural gas in spades in America. From Alaska to Michigan and all points in between, there's an abundance of natural gas in America like no other, isn't there?
Oh, there is. And, you know, it's happened in Michigan where they've at least considered it in Ann Arbor to ban natural gas. Ann Arbor's banned gasoline-powered leaf blowers starting in 2027. So there's always somebody thinking up some way that government should take more control. And this is a way to say government stay out of the way and let people have their own choice.
As well, we should. Also on that, I saw that, and I want to stay with energy here, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but these data centers I mentioned off the top, there'll be an impact on the grid in Michigan and other places. But I was told that the MEDC would be the ones in charge of deciding whether or not we would raise rates in Michigan. Did I read that wrong, or is that some insanity being pushed down our throats again?
Well, I don't think the MEDC, the MPSC.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, the MPSC.
Yep. Yeah, and data centers are a hot topic right now, and I think we've got to develop an approach of how we're going to let them affect normal citizens with things like power. Right now, I think in Michigan, we're at a baseload problem where we're maxed out on both ends of production and consumption. So we've got to build some baseload before we could do that. That or data centers are going to have to provide their own power on site. So the problem with that is it becomes very expensive in Michigan to build a data center. Now, some people want them, some people don't. I think we have to look at how do we make them effective and efficient in Michigan without impacting local residents.
So how do we increase the base load? How do we improve and update the grid? Look, I was without power half a dozen times during Christmas break, half a dozen times.
Yeah.
Thank God I've got a backup generator. Without that, I would have been sitting in the dark in cold temperatures for hours at a time. Many of my neighbors were. Many of the people here, they didn't have the option to have a backup generator. It's an expensive proposition. How do we allow that to continue?
Well, I think we've got to migrate very quickly towards putting in more nuclear capabilities, the small mobile reactors. There's one supposed to come online at Palisades within the next several months or years. I think we need to speed that process up. And I think one of the things we've heard out of Washington is that the Trump administration has kind of stood the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on their ear of stop being the people that stop it and start being the people that help usher it through in a safe and effective manner.
Yeah. There's also a thing out there called the Long Range Transmission Plan Electric Transmission Line Projects by ITC. Some of this will run Indiana. Some of this will run from Eaton County to Gratiot County. It'll run from Oneida to Sabine Lake. Different projects. Big lines. I'm going to guess there's going to be arguments over that as well. But if we don't upgrade our grid, if we don't, modular nuclear you just mentioned, Steve, brilliant. We need a lot more of that. And I mean, they've got nuclear reactors now the size of a Suburban that can power big chunks of real estate. And maybe these, maybe here's an idea. Maybe these data centers should use natural gas and provide their own power structure and not tap into our grid. What about that idea?
I think that's a great idea. But we're going to have to work on this repeal of the Public Act 233 and 235 to make that happen. Because in Michigan, that'll be illegal by 2040. So we need to stop pivoting in energy and start transitioning. When you pivot, all you do is add cost and capitalization and shelving production that's probably not fully capitalized, but the costs still remain. We have to transition. We cannot pivot. Everything, all forms of energy production on board, let's go. But we have to make it the most efficient and the most cost effective for citizens without adding a ton of cost to the citizen. That's the problem right now. The base load needs to be expanded, but how do you do that without adding cost?
There's the question. Because the cost for electricity goes up and up and up. And as you look north to Ontario, they got rid of all their coal-fired power plants. And the cost of electricity in Ontario has gone through the roof. And that's just a basic economic fact to the consumers there, right? Last word to you.
Yeah, absolutely a huge mistake when you do pivot and remove production without the ability to fully replace it at a cost-effective manner. And that's what's happened in the last couple of years in Michigan. We don't want to continue down that pathway. We need to get back to reality of people having clean, reliable, and affordable energy. And you can't do that with renewables.
You just can't. Steve, I always appreciate you being here. Steve Frisbee from the 44th. Keep fighting forward. I think it's going to be a good year at the ballot box. I do. And hopefully by this time, a year from now, some of the things you talked about, repealing 233, 235, return right to work in Michigan, make us more competitive, lower taxes so people don't just go to Tennessee and Florida, but they'll come here and set up shop. A lot of good things. I'm hopeful this year. So Happy New Year, Steve.
Happy New Year to you.
All right, there you have it. I've got a positive outlook about all of it. Here's another positive outlook. Ivy's feeling better. I think she's turning the corner, thankfully. She'll be with me next. All right, back at it now. And like I said before the break, and it's a good thing. Ivy's been battling this bug. She didn't get the flu per se. She just got this nagging, rotten cough. A lot of people have been through it. I went through it. But she's battling back, and she's here with a big smile on her face. Good morning, Ivy.
Good morning, Steve.
You are feeling a bit better, but it's been a bit of a struggle.
Battling every day, Steve.
Yeah, every day.
Whether it's a cold or anything else.
Fair point. We fight every day. One battle after another, which was the strangest thing we've laid eyes on in a long time. Strange movie. I don't think I can recommend it. Anyhow, what's on your mind?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that because one of my goals, we've been talking about goals a lot because it's the beginning of the year, but trying to act more like a CEO than a firefighter. You know, just trying to actually work in the business instead of on the business. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
You know, I need to focus on building the business, not putting out fires every second of the day.
Well, you know, business owners will tell you that's pretty much part of the job. You changed your title here last year to Chief Everything Officer, which is kind of it. You're the chief firefighter around here because you do things behind the scenes. I sit out here more than you do, obviously, and you do things behind the scenes, and a lot of that is, and any business owner knows that. And hopefully 26 will be better. I feel like we're off to a good start. I think that we're seeing good things in the financial markets and inflation, unemployment. So hopefully we'll get rid of some of those roadblocks I was just talking about with Steve Frisbee to business in Michigan. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would, absolutely. I do have a question for you. How do you feel about if a grocery store or any type of store was collecting your biometric data? So your eyes, your face, your voice.
So I walk into the supermarket and they think they're TSA. They take my picture, they figure out who I am. Do they figure out what orange I like, or which apple I like, or which cut of steak I like?
It's not only what you're purchasing, but it's so Wegmans in New York City has 2 locations. They rolled out an early version of this, and they said, hey, we're doing this test run. Now they actually put up signs in the windows of their stores saying, hey, we are collecting your biometric data. But they're saving data on your face, eyes, voices. They're storing it. There isn't any clear indication of whether they're going to keep this information. But it makes you wonder, like, what is it next? You know, are these coming to all grocery stores or all stores near you where they're going to start, saving this biometric data? And isn't there like a Minority Report movie or something like that?
Well, here's my answer. When you set me up, when I go to D.C. from time to time, you get me an Airbnb in a neighborhood that I've grown to like a little bit. There's a supermarket over there. I walk 3, 4, 5 blocks, whatever, to go pick up some things when I'm there.
Right.
My question or my point would be, if you're in New York City and you walk 6 blocks to the grocery store, how many times have you been on camera already? How many cameras? How many times have you already been inspected, detected, rejected, whatever it is, by the time you get to the store? So Wegmans there, I don't like it, but how many cameras have you already been on biometrically evaluated before you even get to the grocery store?
Well, yes, you have cameras, but this is different. This is facial recognition. This is voice recognition.
Well, that's what the government has. I mean, I
but
don't.
The government. I don't know to what level the government is.
I don't believe for a second you walk down a street in New York City and the FBI or the CIA or whoever else can figure out exactly who you are.
They're probably doing that with these devices already, right?
I'm sure.
They have the ability to do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, I don't like it, but we've talked about this before. Where is privacy today?
It's not really surprising to you or bothersome to you because they're probably like
it does bother me.
Oh, okay.
It does bother me. My question would be, what can you do about it? There is no privacy in America. This thing right here,
right?
This smartphone in my hand, or this computer in front of me, or even these monitors that surround me in the studio here.
Right. Well, as we found out, especially Apple devices,
Samsung TVs.
Overnight, they are evaluating and selling your data
thousands of times.
What you like to wear, how you like to shop. All these things that are
what social media platforms you're on, who do you talk to, what do you post, everything. Right. They sell that every night off usually between midnight and 2 in the morning, we learned, right?
Well, it's a profile that's created for you to to, actually, I think agencies to then market to you things that you might want to buy. That is exactly how it's done, and I think they do that a lot to children as well. But we do have an interesting thing coming up, the device that will block all these things. I don't want to talk about it quite yet because we're just in the planning phase. But yeah, I think that you can protect yourself in many ways, but I think a lot of people just don't know how.
Or they just say, they shrug their shoulders and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. That's just the way it is. Right? Because we have been conditioned. Remember how they told us this smartphone would give you freedom? It's the exact opposite. I used to go to grocery stores.
A constant distraction.
Yeah, this is not a criticism of you, to be specific, but I used to go to grocery stores. I think they're the greatest example of free market capitalism and how great America is. You can walk around in a store, you can buy an apple, you can buy tires, you can buy anything you want, you can buy clothes all under one roof. And I would do it because I just enjoyed it. But now you're at a store, and you get 3 text messages, 2 phone calls. You have no freedom left because of this silly thing that we voluntarily carry around, this electronic tether.
Yes, and I think that you do have a choice on whether or not you can set notifications to silent. I think a lot of people suffer from that constant
what I miss?
distraction.
What I miss? I mean, I'm guilty of that.
Your phone having notifications. What is that? What is that? What is that?
Yeah.
I think it's hard for people to get really into deep work. Really actually diving in and having deep work and being 100% focused on what you're doing that very moment.
Which is why you and I have taken to reading books and reading Bible passages before bed. We've set the phone aside. We rarely watch television. Let's keep doing that in 26. How about that?
I think that's great.
All right. Love you.
I love you.
Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I'll take a break and have some final thoughts right after this. All right. Boy, what a lousy day outside it is. Rain. Apparently, we're going to have that for a couple of days. I mean, it's good as far as we needed to end the drought. We had a lot of dry weather here at the end of the last half of 2025. We don't get that too often in Michigan, but sometimes. Some of the lakes are lower than they should be. The Great Lakes are just about at average, but other lakes around the state are low. My ponds were very low. So I guess my advice today is to look at the rain and say, you know what, God, thank you. You know, we needed it, I guess. And we'll have real winter back. Don't worry, it's not over, folks. We've had a lot of winter already. We've had plenty of snow all over this state, but it's going to be a warm couple of days into the 40s. It's going to crowd 50, like 47, 48. I'm looking at the forecast a couple days out. That's where we're going to get. We'll see how that plays out. But we did need the moisture, and we also need a nice hard freeze. It knocks down the pests that come out of the ground come spring. It's a balancing act, I guess. It's a balancing act. Good stuff, though. Tomorrow we'll continue the evaluation of what's happening in Minnesota, what's happening in Michigan. What is our fraud level here? I mean, if money is being skimmed off, either legally by way of legislation or illegally by way of fraud, doesn't matter. If it's not going to where it's needed most, we're not doing the right thing. I hope for a change in 2026. I want the books to be open. I want the books to be open in this country. I want to look at the fraud in Illinois and California and at the federal level. We need to protect the American taxpayer and put the American people, the people that foot the bills first. Stop sticking it to the working men and women in this country. Fight the good fight and keep the faith, my friends. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. Remember, in 2026, only you can save America.